even Gary Machuda stated in an interview with Matt Fradd, or maybe on his own, that the school of the Hillel of the Pharisees included these books, and he says, me, Trent Horn, and William Albrecht, we all concede that this was in the school of Hillel. Well, who is the Pharisee who was the most well-known student of the school of Hillel? It was the Apostle Paul, who is Saul of Tarsus, and he's the one to define these Old Testament books as the law and the prophets, which is the same term that Jesus used with the Pharisees in Luke chapter 16.
Oh, I wanted to bring that up next. That was my last thing to actually ask you. I also view, so in I don't even think I'm coming down and view it. I don't think the parable of the rich man and Lazarus is a parable. I think that might be an actual story. But I'm not saying it might not be a little embellished with imagery, or for them to understand. I don't know, but and I don't mean Jesus was lying. I'm just saying, like,
sure.
Maybe he was using figures of speech with the chasm or the bosom of Abraham or whatever. But I view that as literal, as like he's But it could be a parable. But anyway, so the saying where it says they have Moses and the prophets. Mm-hmm. Now, I view that statement as establishing the sufficiency of Scripture.
It does that too. Both, yeah.
But you can speak to that if you want. But I also think, but in the context of the debate of the Apocrypha, if you could speak to that.
Right. Well, to begin with, you said it does actually support the sufficiency of Scripture and also Sola Scriptura, because what the rich man says, pleads to Abraham, it is for his 5 brothers, and Abraham in the passage says, well, in order for them to avoid this, all they have to do is go by Moses and the prophets. In order to avoid hell and attain heaven, all you need is Moses and the prophets, and that is a term to describe the Old Testament as a whole, because Moses, in antiquity, had a special designation. I mean, the law of Moses, Moses and the prophets, these are books that were not considered debatable. And the prophets was everything else, that were not part of.
Would that include the writings too? That term,
that
would Moses and the prophets.
Yeah, it would include writings, because in the New Testament, the law and the prophets, Moses and the prophets.
It's just a synonym for Scripture.
Yeah, because it includes books that are not found in the second division of the quote unquote prophets, because it cites Job and it cites Daniel, which are actually part of the writings, not part of the law and the prophets. Right. But to get back to when he says they have Moses and the prophets, at the beginning, before the parable or story, whichever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. It says the Pharisees were listening to everything Jesus was saying, and then he appealed to them, saying that the law and the prophets, meaning the Old Testament, were proclaimed until John the Baptist. So he's establishing there is a canon there. And then he says that they, because this parable or whatever of the rich man is symbolic of the Pharisees, because whenever he tells a parable or a story, he's always referring to someone else, in this case, the Pharisees. So he's saying they, referring to the Pharisees, have Moses and the prophets. And the specific word had is extremely important, because in the Greek, it doesn't mean that they had access to it or they were familiar with it or most of it or some of it. It literally means that they had possession of it. It's sort of like the church has possession of the gospel. So Jesus is saying that the Pharisees, representative of the rich man and the 5 brothers, have possession of Moses and the prophets, referring to the Old Testament.
Well, Steve, this is weird because there was no infallible magisterium then, and I was told that Sola Scriptura can't work without high rates of literacy. So, but Jesus says they have Moses and the prophets, so I have to choose between Catholic apologists and Jesus' sayings. So I'm very confused as a lay Catholic.
Yes. Or to choose between either the established Old Testament Scripture or Korban.